Okay, so guys, and welcome back to another predictions video. And in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Munguia versus Surace fight. And so if you are new around here and you have not yet subscribed, please do so. Like video if you do indeed like video, and let's get straight into it. So going into this fight, Munguia is 44-1 with 35 KOs and Surace is 25-0-2 with 4 KOs. This fight is a 10-round fight in the super middleweight division. Munguia's asked for as a win via KO in round 10 versus Bazinian, and Surace's asked for as a win via TKO in round 12 versus Obregon. This is in Munguia's home country of Mexico, and in Tijuana to be precise. Munguia's loss came via unanimous decision versus Canelo in 2024. And to speak a bit more about what I've just been saying, obviously this has been an interesting year for Munguia. He's propelled his career, I'd say, quite a lot, to be honest. I mean, he's now at this point facing Surace, in which he's a step down in opponents. It's an interesting thing to see that he is kind of taking this real step down in opposition after the Canelo loss. The Canelo loss earlier on this year was a bad defeat, but it wasn't a brutally kind of bad defeat. It's a defeat in which you can definitely build upon, learn a lot upon. I think he's continuously improving. I think, to be honest, the slow progression in his career has been something that's definitely benefited him, but he's also learned a lot from the tougher fights in which he's had. I mean, from the Derevianchenko fight to the Ryder fight to the Canelo fight, I think these three fights have taught him so much, and I think he's improved so much from them fights. And he's perhaps a completely different fighter than he once was. When you compare him to perhaps the fighter in which you saw when he last was last in Tijuana. It was 2 years ago. He fought Ballard. He won via TK in round 3, and he looked excellent. But I still think since then he's improved a lot. I think his style's changed a bit, and like I said, I think he's continuously improving. So a fight like this versus Surace is not going to do anything bad for him. I'm sure. It's an undefeated guy, and it's going to be a tough test, but it's just interesting to see, like I said, that they are bringing the level of opposition back down again for him. Obviously, he fought Bazinian last time out. That was an undefeated guy in which was going to be a tough test, and Munguia made him look easy work. So then you kind of want him to propel and move on, and you look at the likes of like a Berlanga fight and think that's a huge, excellent fight. Why isn't that happening? And when you hear this type of opposition, so Race is coming in as a bit of an unknown, to be honest. I mean, in general, there's minimal tape on him, and he's from France, and to be honest, there's a lack of French talent. There's not too many huge kind of French names representing France. I mean, Bailey's a good French name, but he's not really coming out of France. Sissoko is somebody who's fought at a high level recently, but hasn't actually been fighting that much and has kind of halted his career. So when you think about it, there's not really many huge names coming out of France. Lele Saggio is somebody in, I believe, the super middleweight division, in which could be an interesting test for some of the guys. But like I say, in general, it's just interesting to see that they are perhaps downgrading the opposition. I think in general, often you see homecoming fights being against lesser opponents. You can, think back, look back. There's multiple occasions in which you kind of look back and see, oh, they're making a big homecoming fight. It's against a lesser opponent, and I suppose a lot of opposition at a high level, at the top level, don't really want to go into their opposition's hometown, home country, and so I suppose it does make sense, but it's just interesting to see. Like I said, this is the level of opponents in which he's having. Obviously, I'm also and I don't think anybody's too sure of which promoter he's with. Is he with Top Rank? There's was talk about him kind of signing with Top Rank, but then there was never an actual official announcement, which I always found strange. And so we don't really know if it's with Top Rank or not. So it could be it's a Top Rank event, but it's not got any kind of Top Rank fighters seemingly on the undercard. From when I'm looking at this, there's not really too many names on the undercard, and Golden Boy are still talking about him, still putting out Instagram posts about him, and still saying certain stuff about him in a positive way. So I'm just not too sure who he's with, what's happening with him, and I don't think anybody is. But nonetheless, it's just one of the first occasions in which this has happened. I think Golden Boy, if they lose a talent like Munguia, it's a very kind of big knock to their stable, and their stable is looking a bit weaker at the moment. I mean, there's three fighters in which you look at it and think, they're strong. You've got William Zepeda, who's coming off a bit of a poorer performance versus Tevin Farmer. You've got Virgil Ortiz, who's seemingly going to get a big fight versus perhaps Boots Ennis next. And then you also have Zerda Ramirez, who's coming off a big win versus Bellum Smith and is looking excellent, and hopefully he's going to fight Optaya if Optaya can get through Sin Cara. Like I say, other than that, there's not really many huge names kind of available on Golden Boy, and Munguia was a big kind of poster boy, and there was a lot of push from De La Hoya after the fight with Canelo during the build up for the Canelo fight, and then it seemed like Munguia perhaps fell out with De La Hoya a bit, just like a lot of fighters do, just like kind of Ryan Garcia has done multiple times, and not really too sure what's happening with him. And he's still classed as a Golden Boy fighter, but like I say, not too sure what's happening with him. And so, it's just interesting to see what's happening with his career. Of course, he has this fight versus Surace. Surace's record, perhaps you could argue, is padded. He's had one 12-rounder. He went into the 12th round distance and he won by a TKO. Impressive, well done to him. He's never left France. This is his first time leaving France, so I respect him. Going to Munguia's home, you got to always respect that. But like I say, he's been fluctuating in rounds. He's fought quite a lot of 6-rounders, 8-rounders. Of course, your early 4-rounders, your 10-rounders as well. But he's been very much fluctuating between them. He's never really settled in how many rounds he's going to be fighting. Now, like I say, he's his second 12-rounder against a proper high-level opposition outside of France for the first time. Like I say, you could argue that his record is padded. Something I did find a bit interesting. I went back and looked at Munguia's record at this time when he'd had a similar kind of level of fights when he'd won about 25. He was fighting perhaps similar names in Mexico. I don't think Golden Boy picked him up yet, but was at a similar point in his career. So I suppose if you argue that Surace has got a padded record, and you got to also argue that Munguia has also got a very padded record. So like I say, I just find it interesting, and I'm also intrigued in what the reception is going to be like for Munguia for this homecoming. I'm sure it's going to be a great homecoming. Like I say, a lot has changed in the last 2 years for him, and Mexican fighters, Mexican fans often get behind their own, and hopefully they'll be doing that for him. When he's not against a Mexican legend in Canelo, I'm hoping that they get behind their own and really kind of support him and help him and push him through this fight. And perhaps if it does get tough for him, then they're able there to support him. Munguia as a fighter, though, I think, like I say, he's been improving a lot, and there's been many different things, especially if you look at his last performance versus Bazinian. I'm kind of mainly going off that last performance. I think there has been a lot that's changed and a lot that's improved. And, I think he manages his stamina much better. And I also think he disengages better as well. And he's also got good timing and will go for counters now. So these are kind of things in which you didn't really see earlier on from Munguia. And, he didn't start too fast. I think he started a bit too fast versus Canelo, and then Canelo was able to break him down upon then. I also think, like I say, he disengages better, was circling round. He wasn't kind of forcing the stoppage, forcing the big win versus Bazzini, and then it came. And, there was a lot of times in which he'd go into exchanges, really measured in exchanges, go into the body excellently, really clean, sharp exchanges, accurate exchanges where in the past they haven't been perhaps so accurate. They've been a bit wild, they've been a bit messy, they've not been showing the variety in punches in which he can throw. They've been, now very, had a great variety to them, and have also still been very strong as well. But like I say, they've been good. They've been breaking you down, and yeah, in general, they have been much improved. And like I say, also showing the good timing as well. He's been more willing to go onto the back foot, more willing to be lighter on his feet, bounce through on his feet, and go onto the back foot. And he caught Bazinian with a great shot on his back foot, and it shows that he can have good timing. It's just something in which we haven't really seen too much from Munguia, which is really nice to see happening now, though. I think he doesn't smother his work, perhaps as much as what he used to. I definitely don't think he does that. I still think typically he's an in-close type fighter, but, his jab's improving when he utilises it. He doesn't utilise it still loads, but it's a lot more than it used to be. And like I say, he's moving well as well. He imposes himself physically. I think he's still able to do that well, and that's something in which you don't really want to see him stop doing, I think. I think, like I say, he manages his stamina better. I think he can still be quite overwhelming, which is, again, a good attribute. It's kind of you got to give credit to his team to be able to pick into the things that he does well and pick into the things that perhaps he's not so good at, and then kind of mixing them together. It's a very, very hard thing to do. You see, pretty much every fighter wants to be able to do this, but just a lot of fighters aren't able to do it. I mean, you've seen AJ, it's taken him multiple times, multiple occasions to be able to try and improve his boxing. It took him, the Usyk fight, he was just outboxed completely. Then he has tried to improve his boxing, and had some fights in which they weren't really the best of performances, and he looked poor. And then was trying to improve his boxing and his variety in punches, and then inevitably it ended up with a Daniel Dubois loss, which was a very poor performance from him, where he just seemed like he was kind of unsure on which style he should fight at. And like I say, you see that very often, but for Munguia, it's been carefully picked at, and it seemed to have worked really well so far. And he, I think, has, like I say, showed more on the back foot, but he's still physical at the same time. Negatives about him, I think, he can be overconfident. He definitely could be going into this fight overlooking. It really wouldn't surprise me if he is, to be honest, because of, like I mentioned, the other big fights available to him and that have been talked about, given names to him. It wouldn't surprise me if he's overconfident or overlooking his opponent. I think, he can, perhaps still be too aggressive. It's still not really been tested if he's going to get drawn into a fight. Surace isn't probably somebody that's going to test that, but it's going to be interesting to see if somebody goes up against him and tries to be physical and tries to push him into a fight, if he's actually going to get drawn into one. And, like I say, he's known to headhunt. Like I say, I think it's got better, but he has been known to headhunt. I think if he gets damaged, he may become hesitant. I think when you fight something like a Canelo, it's very difficult to be able to go back to how you were boxing before when you get beaten down the way he did. I think he mentally breaks you down, and he can make you become hesitant. That's just how impressive he is. But has he become hesitant? I'm not too sure. We're going to have to wait and see what's happened with that. He's got a lack of a jab, and in general, that jab, he is really good when he uses it, but he just has to use it a bit more. I think, I think coming into better play now, but he just has to use it a bit better. He fights emotionally sometimes, and like I say, that's something in which hasn't really been tapped into, and so we're gonna have to wait and see if that does or not. His accuracy in close can still sometimes be a little bit poor at times. I still don't think he has the best of head movement. Bazinian was able to catch him with a few straight shots, and so Race has an excellent jab, and really is a piercing jab, and he might be able to catch Munguia with that. And if he stands straight in front of you, he does still kind of do that a lot of the time. So like I say, he can get caught with them straight shots. Speak about Surace as a fighter, like I say, excellent jab. All of his punches are typically off his jab, which is really nice to see, to be honest, because like I mentioned, it's a very piercing jab. The footage in which you can see of him is a jab in which he steps into very nice. He kind of leans off his back foot and goes into it, and it goes straight through the guard. It's very sharp, very crisp. And it's a very nice jab, and it's definitely the best punch in which he has. And you can use a jab in multiple different ways, but he seems to use it as a weapon and a kind of main weapon for a lot of his work. Not trying to say that he's completely like this fighter, but somebody in which he's similar to an extent. Is like a Nathan Heaney. It's surprising, I think he is above that, and he's able to fight at a world level, but I think he is similar to a Nathan Heaney in certain aspects. He really does lean on his back foot. He has a very good piercing jab. He's typically going to be a bit more of a back foot type fighter. He's going to try going to exchanges, but they're not always going to work. They can be quite sloppy at times. He can keep you out of range. Perhaps Heaney wasn't really able to do it, I guess, the best against like a Brad Pauls, but he can keep you at range. Surace, he's accurate. He's got them fast hands. I think, like I say, his jab is very fast, very crisp, very clean. He follows up on his work typically quite nice. He slips and shoots, slips a lot of shots, and then is able to counteract. Sometimes it means that his chin's in the air when he's doing it, and perhaps that's not the best of things. But when he does catch you with that kind of slip and shoot, it looks very, very beautiful to see. He fights at typically a slower pace. Munguia doesn't fight at a slower pace, so he wants to take you to a fight at a slower pace. Munguia typically doesn't fight at a slower pace, but he might be more, more relying to might do that more now because, like I say, he's changing his styles. But we'll have to wait and see. He makes you miss a lot of times to race by kind of being just out of range and kind of boxing and then moving and not staying in exchanges a bit too long. And he's got solid timing as well. And he's got a good uppercut if he does utilise it. But I just think he does have limited shot kind of variation. He doesn't utilise his work as well as what he could do. But he has got a good uppercut when he does use it. Negatives about him, I think sometimes he sets up a bit too fast, kind of goes off his jab a bit too quickly, and then when he tries to up the pace, it can be a little bit poorer. He's working a little bit more messy. He can be caught when he plants his feet because opponents don't really respect him. Sometimes he's going into exchanges, planting his feet with working off the jab, but opponents will just kind of swinging a hook because they don't respect the power in which he's landing with, and that's something in which I think is definitely going to play a factor for this fight because Munguia has that much more power than Surace, and Surace really doesn't have too much power behind his shots. He's got a minimal guard, Surace, so I think he's gonna probably get caught. And if he gets caught on the ropes versus Munguia, then Munguia's definitely gonna offload shots, and he's probably willing to invite pressure. Surace, he's open when coming in as well. I think he does leave himself quite open often. He leans on the back foot a bit too long and has his chin in the air, like I mentioned a bit at times. I think he can try and be physical and try and kind of push you back, but it's kind of is just sloppy pushes in which he's doing, and I don't think that's going to do much to Munguia, to be honest. And in general, I think he does struggle getting opponents off of him. He stands tall as well, and I think in general, in close, his work definitely isn't the best. Munguia is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Munguia will win via TKO in round 8. I think it's going to be a great performance from Munguia. I think Surace might have success, like I say, perhaps at a couple shots with the jab, but Munguia is just going to keep walking forwards. Like I say, I would like to see him reset at times, perhaps even go onto the back foot and let Surace come forwards with the opening of his guard, and then I think Munguia might be able to time him, and that would be a great, progression in his career and showing of his new skills if he's able to do that and land on the back foot versus Surace like he was able to do Vespasian. But if not, if he wants to come onto the front foot and be kind of that bullish self, I think he could definitely make Munguia, impose himself well and make Surace struggle to get him off of him and then win, like I say, via TKO in round 8. I think Surace is going to be game and going to be tough to drop and tough to hurt, but he will get hurt inevitably and then won't be able to get back up. Then we could go on to fight next. Like I said, everybody wants to see the Berlanga fight. Realistically, when you kind of look at both their records now, they both fought Canelo, and they're both given very tough or very creditable names for themselves. Their stock's risen from them fights. Realistically, but they've both been dropped. They've both been able to come and show heart, show that they can push through, and realistically, that's the main thing. When you want your stock to go up, even if you lose, you should show heart, and as long as you show heart and you show that you're willing to fight, then realistically your stock will go up because it's the entertainment business. The fans are intrigued by that. So, personally, that is the fight in which everybody wants to see him versus Berlanga in a 12-round contest, possibly for an interim title. Not too sure. Possibly just not for a title. Nobody really cares because it just should be a fight in which happens. And Top Rank and Matchroom, not too sure. Perhaps if His Excellency gets involved, that might happen. As long as he's not fighting another 10-rounder next. Realistically, nobody wants to see him fight 10 rounders. To be honest, Mbili is another option. Mbili is the mandatory to fight Canelo, so perhaps that might happen. Like I say, not really too sure what's happening with Canelo at the moment. The limited options really that he has, he could fight like a Pacheco, he could fight like an Mbili, but I just don't think they sell the same, and I'm not too sure if Canelo is too bothered by them at this point in his career. So, an Mbili may fight a Munguia. Iglesias will be a great fight. Perhaps it's too soon, so I don't know if that would happen, but Iglesias has been progressing very well, and if he wants a major step up, put him in versus Munguia, and that would be a very tough test, but I would love to personally see it. If not, Skull. Skull, of course, is the newly crowned IBF champion, but it was a very, boring contest in which the fans weren't really enjoying too much, and I don't really think the fans are enjoying too much seeing him as a champion, to be honest. And if you want to get Munguia, and if Top Rank or Golden Boy are keen to push Munguia back to a title, he's ranked highly in the IBF. That could be an easy fight to be made realistically because Skull hasn't got a major promotion. He's backed by Aegon Sports, but it's not a major promotion, and like I say, that could probably happen easy as like a first test for Skull, and it would be a very tough first test for Skull. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if perhaps that could happen. I think people will probably be chasing that fight as like I say, an easier world title fight, an easier way in. Them fighting Canelo, of course. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you didn't, like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.